Well, as you can see, the set looks very different from the last time we spoke. I've sort of flipped it around, facing the other direction. I got more room this way. I can get to my window easier. Anyway, it's nice to have you on the show. We are I'm going to take this episode and sort of have it run back to back with your last one, so to see the progression of what you've achieved. So again, welcome to the show. And let's see if we can elaborate a little bit more about this AI. I'm fascinated with that. If my understanding is correct from our last conversation, you're talking about the AI giving you the sort of a rough draft from which then you edit it. Is that correct?
That's pretty much it. Yeah. So the way that the way that it worked is that I had this idea about do you know this website Spurious Correlations? I actually had a Facebook friend just post about it. So someone went through a lot of open data sets and found kind of strange correlations just through coincidence. So for example, if you cut off the dates right, there's a very clear correlation between the per capita cheese consumption in the US and the number of people who die by getting strangled by their bed sheets. Well, the person did this project as a way to kind of show that, look, correlation isn't always causation. Sometimes it's just coincidental. You shouldn't always read too much into this kind of thing. But it got me thinking, well, wouldn't it be fun if you could have a noir detective story looking for some kind of mysterious conspiracy that's the reason why per capita cheese consumption is correlated with people getting strangled in their bed sheets. And then I read about ChatGPT, and people are using it at my work. It helps with composing emails. It's very corporate friendly speak, and it also helps people in programming tasks. It can do some of the heavy lifting there, the stuff that doesn't require too much creativity. So I had the thought. I mean, this spurious correlations. I didn't want to come up with 100 different conspiracy theories, but the way that the AI works, it looks at words as being dimensions, one could say. So if you have king, then queen would be on the opposite side of that along one dimension, or good and bad could be along a different dimension. And then if you say you have king and queen, then prince and princess would be running in parallel to that, but they'd be offset by something like maybe young and old. And in that way, what they're called large language models were doing is they're essentially finding the shortest path between, I guess, whatever you're giving it. They're looking for what words are closest using these very large data sets that they've been trained on. So my thinking was, well, if I want to come up with 100 conspiracy theories really quickly, I can just get ChatGPT to find what's the closest path between per capita cheese consumption and dying by being strangled in one's bed sheets. So that was kind of the initial idea. So then I fed it these different prompts and got it to write these. And I told it to write like a hard-boiled detective novel kind of style to write these noir supernatural mystery stories, because it's just a genre that I like, but I think it's also could really use some parody.
Yeah.
To explain these weird correlations. But I think it's also kind of interesting because the AI would actually find kind of the most plausible conspiracy theory because it's just finding the shortest path in this linguistic space that it's navigating. So yeah, I thought it was kind of a neat project and a neat kind of marker for where we are in time with machine learning and AI and all that kind of things.
Where do you start with wanting AI to write something for you? What's the first thing a person would have to do if they want to, follow
Oh,
what you're doing?
yeah. So I would go to chat.openai.com. If you go there and you can just sign up. I think they want to train obviously on people using it and people finding it useful or not. Bing has a chat feature now, which is quite similar, and I think. I believe that Facebook is also coming out with its own entry into the space. So yeah, there's a lot of options. I used OpenAI's ChatGPT.
Is there a cost, a membership fee?
Uh, not for just the basic thing. They've got a 3.5 and a 4.0 version. If you want to use the 4.0, you do have to pay. Also, if you're sending automated calls to it, then you need a key essentially that you can automate your interaction with it.
Okay.
I do have one of those because I'm also interested in, what can be done if you get another AI just to create a prompt and send it to this, and then it gets a prompt back. For example, they have also AIs these days that can take a text prompt and generate an image. So one thing
Oh,
that
yeah.
I'm kind of interested in is,
Me
can
too.
you yeah, can you give one kind of prompt to a large language model, have it generate a prompt for an image model, and have the image model send you back a picture for the
Wow.
for the original prompt that you were doing. So that kind of um, multiple intelligences system, which
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
think that's how our intelligence works. Also,
I see.
I think there's a lot of interesting stuff one can do there.
Hmm.
But no, for this project, I didn't even have that kind of a key yet. I was just on the general prompt, and sometimes it would go down because their servers were too busy. And being a free customer, I wasn't at the top of that list. But
Hmm.
yeah, no, it was very simple. And
So you have an idea, and you put in your idea of what you want in general form, or do you fill out something so that you end up with a crime drama rather than, say, a love story or a science fiction or a
Mhm.
country, a Western story or something? Do you have those choices at
Yeah.
the front end as to what you want to make?
No, so that's like you have to actually tell it. So what I would do is I would go from this spurious correlations thing, and I would say essentially, write me a write a hard-boiled detective story in the first person, um, containing supernatural elements that explains why uh, the number of movies Nicolas Cage appears in correlates with people drowning in swimming pools.
I
Um,
see.
and then you can add details. So I remember in one of them, for example, there was a the number of deaths by hot vapor was correlated to the age of Miss America beauty pageant winners. Um, and I thought, oh, that's fun, but I'm going to also get it to mention Donald Trump now because he was in the news and he used to own the Miss America beauty pageant. So I thought, and meant like, and then I mentioned also, and it should involve Donald Trump. So sure enough, it then worked Donald Trump in as one of the witnesses to this
Okay.
hotelier
I
conspiracy.
see. I see. So you're actually writing in a brief description of what you want. So if, say, I wanted to go and do something like this, and I say, I want to write a comedy about a really bad rock band, and it has to correlate with something or other. Does it always have to correlate with something, or can you just describe briefly, like a synopsis? This is what I want you to do, or do you have to have correlations?
No, you can do whatever you can do
Okay.
whatever you want to do. It's also looking for kind of the shortest connection between the words you're using. So the correlations is that's just there because I'm putting it into in my initial prompt. But you could also just tell it, write me a comedy about a really bad rock band, and it would absolutely it would make something up for you. And if you run it again later, it'll make up something completely different.
Okay. What's the name of your book?
Yeah. It's called the Deroko Files. So Roko's basilisk is this idea of a future AI that tortures anyone that didn't help it develop it. It's this very scary AI boogeyman kind of a thing. So the detective in the story is called Basil Deroko. It's an a nod to Roko's basilisk, and the Deroko files are kind of the case files of this
Mm-hmm.
cyborg detective. And I'm a little self-referential in it also. I talk the narrator, this cyborg detective, talks about how it's really just a next word prediction engine, and it could have been churning out schlocky pulp fiction novels, but instead it became a detective to solve these supernatural crimes that no one else can see the correlations of. So yeah, that's the Deroko files.
Do you foresee some people who may not really have it in them to write a book to write books like this? This could be like a future of pulp
I
fiction,
hope
sort of thing.
so. Well, I hope so. The thing that is that I think about, and I wrote about this in my first book, which you I talked about the last time I was on your podcast. Um, I do believe that if machines get better at the execution, the actual putting words on the page, then humans have to get really good at that, having the initial idea, setting the priority. And I think that's something we've been really neglecting in our society. And I think it's too bad that people the only people who get to write books are people who are good at writing, when I bet there's so many people who have excellent ideas for books that maybe don't have the wordsmithing capacity themselves.
Right, right.
I think about something like The Martian, which is just this, it's a book about a fellow who gets trapped on an astronaut who gets trapped on Mars and has to, survive until the shuttle is close enough, until the orbits sync up enough that a rescue can be effected. Um, Excellent idea, and it isn't a familiar genre, so it wouldn't really have been published traditionally. But because with self-publishing, this person had this great idea, was able to write it quite well.
This sounds very interesting because, as you say, people have good ideas or have an idea and they don't know how to follow through with it. And then this
Mm-hmm.
sort of kickstarts them. So they learn how to
Mm-hmm.
use the whole program, the website. Then they
Mm-hmm.
get something back from it. Would at that point they could edit it to some degree. They have something to work with.
Oh
Is that
yeah,
something you did? You
yeah.
edited the stories?
Yes, absolutely. So I think a big thing to me, if I had really wanted this book and I didn't have ChatGPT, I could have absolutely written it. There's nothing particularly difficult about the writing or the coming up with zany conspiracies why these correlations existed. But it's so much faster when you have, as you said, something to edit, something to talk back to you. I know that a lot of authors talk about the terror of the blank page. I'm sure you write. I'm sure you've experienced that paralysis when there's just so many options open to you.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and actually, before I wrote my first book, which I wrote unassisted in that sense, I had a habit of going on the internet and I would just read comments on social media, and often I'd get into arguments and write these really articulate things that I thought were important first thing in the morning. And I thought, hang on, I'm spending all this energy writing these really articulate thoughts before I go to work. Why am I not doing this in something a little more long lasting? I think that an AI that, you could tell it, for example, talk in a snobbish way, defending the opposite of the thing you want to write about, and get it to give you a prompt that way. And then you go, no, that's actually wrong. So, yeah, in ways like that, and also in just if you see a version of what you want to say, you kind of get a much clearer idea of how you want to say it. That first draft can really be very valuable and just save so much trouble when you're getting into it.
For sure. How is the grammar? Like when you get the thing, given back to you, can you see where you can improve the grammar, maybe restructure sentences? That's what I do when I edit my own books.
Yeah, I would say the prose, like definitely the prose is very wordy. I know like Stephen King talking about on writing, how he had this revelation when his first editor just started crossing words out of his text. And it still made sense. And he was like, oh, it's about being lean. Chat GPT is very wordy. It writes a lot of unnecessary filler. And I find that when I edit what it said, and I like how it said it, I still find myself deleting a lot of words, tightening up the sentence structure in that way. The actual grammar, though, I've never encountered that I remember a grammar mistake. I think because it's trained on the average of so many things, and mistakes are always deviations from the average, it's very good at that kind of writing in a coherent and easy to understand way. There's another book that I just came out with where I had written the first draft, and I told ChatGPT, and I went kind of paragraph by paragraph through it, and I said, write this to be more comprehensible, because like keep the meaning, keep the citations, but I'm writing about quantum physics and time, and how that relates to flow experience, and it's at the edge of my own intellectual capacity. And I find that when I'm writing about things that I don't understand very well, I just choose the worst, like the most complicated, too many syllables, unnecessary ways to say things, which I asked ChatGPT to do the opposite, to take my first draft and to make it a little easier to read, because I figured it would have, if I'm using some large syllable words, it would have some more simple everyday prose that would be more accessible to it. And I think it is like I even found it a little easier to read what I had written after that pass through. So yeah, I think there's a lot of tools that an author can use here, from like I did, just having it write full stop from an idea that you have, to giving something to edit if you're stuck and experiencing writer's block, to red teaming, giving you something to argue against, to even changing the prose if you want to be a little more comprehensible.
So perhaps one can use this service not to write an entire book, but to get them over the hump of something that's really they're stuck on, right?
Yeah. It's something you're stuck on. I think that is excellent. Yeah, and I imagine a lot of authors would listen to your podcast, because it's largely about the writing process. And I think that that is very much the hope. And I think also for me, the hope is that it does become easier for people to do the execution, and to focus more on that, coming up with the original idea. I think that that's really what we want humans to be doing. I think that's what humans are uniquely good at. And I do hope that the advent of a tool like this will make that easier, and will make people more interested in, like, hey, if it's easier to write, maybe I'll think about what I want written, what books I want to see exist.
Okay.
That's really my hope for this thing.
So this is just another tool that takes it one step further. It's almost like having somebody knocking ideas off, with somebody. Hey, what do you think of this? And then they talk to you, and then you talk to them, and all of a sudden the light bulb goes off. That's what I would use it for.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I think that is kind of what most people are going to use it for is, and I think actually some people are using it, in fact, as kind of a personal therapist.
Hmm.
If you need someone to talk to, not just about your books, but
I've heard
whatever's
of that.
going on in your life.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it is to me it feels like a pretty significant moment in technological history actually. I think for the first time we have a program that can actually sort of pass itself off as human if you're just interacting with it by text. And that's pretty interesting. I think it's worth paying attention to that and digging a little deeper into what this means and how we should relate to it.
Sounds great, Chris. Sounds really a lot of fun. I'm definitely going to check that out, and I hope the viewers have learned something, and maybe this could
Mhm.
become something they could use as a tool to help them write their stories.
I hope so. I hope so. I think it has the potential to really unlock a lot of creativity.
Yeah, I think so too. It's been a pleasure talking with you again, and I look forward to
Thanks so
speaking
much,
with you
John.
again in the future with some more of your work.
Oh, wonderful. Yes,
All right.
I'll have something for you hopefully before too long.
Okay. Very good. Well, you take care of yourself now.
You as well. Thanks so much, John.
Take care. Thank you for watching. If you like what I do here on Tell Me About Your Book, then please subscribe, hit that like button, leave a comment below, and don't forget to ring that bell for future notifications. And if you are an author, I would really like to speak with you. Until such time, keep on writing and be kind to one another.